Today we're going to get you on your way to mastering Sparrow in Apex Legends. Apex's resident archer mixes together a nice blend of information gathering, offensive playmaking, and being able to style on enemies through some of Apex's most useful and versatile movement abilities. We're going to go over a ton of in-game examples, plus talk about lots of tips and tricks, but if you are interested in more specific portions of his kit, please reference the timestamps in the description, and let's get started. As for a quick overview of Sparrow, he has a passive that gives him a double jump and also is a member of the Recon class. His tactical is a dart that he can shoot and scan and track enemy players who do come into its area, and his ultimate is a larger arrow that he can place on the ground to damage and slow enemies that are within its area of effect. Sparrow's passive ability is a straight up double jump that on paper is pretty linear, but the overall amount of use cases and overall potential of this ability is quite high. We will get to some specific examples in a moment, but to activate this double jump, all you have to do is hit jump again when you are already in the air. Additionally to this though, Sparrow has a wall climbing jump or a wall boost that lets him greatly leap up walls and surfaces to increase your overall climbing potential. The biggest thing to know about both the wall boost and the double jump is that both of these jumps do not reset until Sparrow's feet do come back in contact with the ground. Note that you can also combo a wall jump into a double jump to achieve some pretty extreme climbing distances. We're going to show some examples of this double jump, but it's also worth mentioning that Sparrow does have a second passive ability to carry additional arrows and explosive arrows for the bow check. Not really going to change the game, but it is good to know. For the double jump though, one basic tip I will recommend is just the general sliding double jumping when you are rotating. This isn't going to make the biggest impact, but every second in Apex truly does count, and slightly moving quicker and at least making yourself a little bit harder to predict and hit when you are rotating will be helpful. Another pretty basic but useful tip is to use the double jump to prevent yourself from slamming into the ground and forcing yourself to have that 1 second fall fatigue or stun. You should never really have this happen when you are on Sparrow. Much like other legends such as Pathfinder or Horizon, understanding the general map layout is pretty important. This is how you can chain movements together. This takes time to learn how each map is laid out, but you can do a wall boost into a double jump and then slide down a hill or edge slide off of objects to continue your momentum, while this also triggers the reset of Sparrow's passive jumps. If done properly, you can get some pretty nice movement and speed in there that is going to be very difficult for enemies to predict or get shots on you. While it's basic in theory, the ability to double jump and traverse across gaps on all the maps is pretty great, and it does take a little bit of map knowledge. Don't underestimate how far you can double jump to cross areas that are untraversable to pretty much all of the other legends without some sort of at least tactical or ultimate ability. And likewise with that previous tip, this also applies for climb ups and the overall combat maneuvering that you can do. Wall boosting and double jumping up areas enemies do not expect is one of the strongest methods of taking an engagement, simply because pretty much no other legend in the game can do this with the exception of maybe Revenant, but even Revenant has areas that he can't climb, and Sparrow can easily bypass this as well. Moving to a slightly more advanced passive tip to combo together the super glide with a double jump. This isn't a movement guide, so I will state that you will need to look up how to super glide, but the basic is to do a climb up and press jump at the top of your climb and crouch one frame later. Doing a super glide brings in extreme speed into a double jump, lets you have a ton of great movement that unlocks Apex in an entirely new way. Like we mentioned earlier, it is critical that you get extremely good with the timing of the wall boost. You can boost into an engagement to pop up, get vertical, and shoot enemies. You can do this if enemies are camped way up on height or even on smaller objects that are lower to the ground if you get that timing and jump right. The gravity cannons on Stormpoint and even the one on E District can let you double jump during or out of the cannon to get some pretty insane distance and overall change where you are going to land. If you are wondering how good Sparrow's passive ability is when compared to other legends passives, I honestly think his double jump and wall boost are probably one of the greatest in the game. I'd say somewhere in the top 3 to 5ish range. Ranking each ability for legends is something new that I want to include, as doing this I figured it gives the legend a little bit more context in terms of how useful each part of their kit is. This way you can really understand what you should be spending your time on perfecting. Let me know if you like this in the comments down below. I would be curious to hear your thoughts. We are going to be moving on to Sparrow's tactical, which is a little bit more straightforward, but the last passive thing to know about Sparrow is that he is a member of the Recon class. This means enemies are highlighted in red when you are aiming down sights, and Sparrow also gets to scan the survey beacons, which is actually a pretty big deal and links together nicely with the tactical ability. Before that though, if this guide is helpful, please hit the like button. It helps a ton on the video getting out there, and if you want to go the extra mile, consider becoming a channel member. Big thanks to all my current members as well. Sparrow's tactical is the tracker dart, which shoots a small arrow or dart from Sparrow's gauntlet that will reveal enemies who walk inside of its area of effect and are in the line of sight of that dart. At the time of the posting of this video, Sparrow gets 3 charges at its base. There's no time limit as to how long the darts can stay on the ground, and up to 5 tactical darts can be placed on the ground at once. Since the dart has a pretty long cooldown of 35 seconds per charge, it's important to try and start spreading out the darts as soon as you can if you know you're not going to be moving quite as much, or at least you want to always have that 3rd charge of the dart be running so you can get multiple areas of coverage. We're going to talk more about upgrades later, but Sparrow's first 2 upgrade options revolve around the tactical. One is to allow you to place 2 more charges on the ground, so up to 7 can be active, which is quite a bit. Likewise, the other upgrade is to move faster to marked enemies who get tagged by the tactical, which is also pretty fair. It'll depend on whether or not you think having 7 total traps placed at once is worth it. Personally, I find the movement speed boost to be minimally impactful, so I like having a few extra trap options so I can have more coverage. But if you are just pubbing, I think the movement speed boost is probably the better choice. Either way, both upgrades are just fair, I would say, and I wouldn't stress about your decision. I find the most optimal way to place the traps is going to be up high in corners where enemies have a harder time shooting. So this could be up high in a narrow alley or up high behind a doorway. Once the scan starts and gets triggered though, enemies only have 3 seconds to destroy the tactical or they will be tagged and tracked. The scan lasts about 12 seconds right now and is unremovable. And also when an enemy is scanned, a red arrow will appear on the map, and one dart can scan multiple enemies if they are all within visual range of the dart when that 3-second timer is counting down. When enemies initially start to get scanned, there is a little red icon above their heads, which does make it easy to follow, and if an enemy doesn't destroy that tactical, they're going to get a bluish purple wave type of tracking, which also makes it pretty easy to follow and ultimately pre-fire on enemies as they are moving around and walking around corners. The other symbols you will want to keep an eye on is an eye with like an X on it. This means an enemy destroyed the trap that was trying to scan them. Likewise, there is a blackish red icon that will pop up, and this shows more or less how much time is left on the tactical scan, as it does slowly go down if you do pay close attention. Like we mentioned, the tactical is pretty basic, and the way you use it is really simple. Just place it on the ground, and the best way to think about this ability is almost like a tool where you can use this arrow or dart to watch your back, almost like a 4th person. Also, using the dart mid-fight is effective, as enemies are going to get scanned, letting you get that non-stop intel and tracking them, or they got to take their attention away from you and shoot that dart. Either way, it's going to be a win-win. They get distracted or they get tracked. You can also use the tactical while you are aiming down sights for more accurate placement if you are shooting it a little bit further away. This can be pretty clutch, as one of the best things going for the tactical is that you can use it to scan survey beacons. This can be done from close range or far away. You don't need that dart to actually hit the beacon either. You just got to be close to it on the ground. So don't worry and don't spend too much time really trying to line it up. The tactical is also going to track Mirage clones, so be aware of this. It isn't going to just lock onto the real Mirage if he did already use something like his ultimate. However, the tactical can be really great as a counter, as you can track the real Mirage, and then if he does pop an ultimate or a tactical, the dart is just going to continue to track that real Mirage, making it super easy to locate him and get him down. As far as tactical abilities are concerned though, I would say that this tac is not insane, but it's also not bad. Somewhere right in the middle of all of Apex's tacticals. It won't have the same power effect as like a Horizon Lift or a Pathfinder Grapple, but when it does come to the Recon class, it's probably a top 2 or 3 tactical out of all of those legends. As we move on to Sparrow's ultimate tips, note that the role of Sparrow and why you would want to play him can vary. Sparrow, for one though, is a great movement legend if you are looking for this type of play in your next main. Sparrow is also a team recon and intel gathering legend if this is your thing. And additionally, with Sparrow's ultimate and even in some senses the tactical scan, Sparrow is also a great pressure legend to force enemies to scatter and move. I don't think Sparrow is a pure fragger or entry fragger or anything like that though. Sparrow is, however, a great in-game leader or IGL for the squad due to his ability to just move around and scout out where enemies are, comboed in with the tactical scanning. When it comes to Sparrow's ultimate ability, the Stinger Bolt, this is a strong and effective larger arrow Sparrow can shoot onto the ground that anchors in one spot and shocks anyone within 20 meters of its base radius. The arrow must be in the line of sight of enemies to do damage, and enemies will take 20 damage per tick. In addition to slowing them down, the base ultimate ability can hit up to 6 times or 120 total damage to each player in its area, if the player does of course not get out of the effect or the line of sight. Not necessarily going to be impactful, but if you you land the ultimate right next to an enemy, it's also going to do up to an additional 15 total damage on that initial placement, and this scales down to 0 around 5 meters. Lastly, the ultimate has a pretty long 180-second or 3-minute cooldown, so be mindful of its use. You're not going to get too many of them in a match. It's worth noting that the ultimate will also not stick to any vertical surface. If it hits a vertical surface or a wall, the ultimate will just fall down to the ground, and then the activation will start. Also, upon using the ultimate, anyone within its 20-meter radius is going to get a quick scan on them, regardless if they are in the line of sight of the ult or not, which is pretty huge to see if you are going to hit anyone before the ultimate even starts ticking. And even if enemies quickly get out of the line of sight or the range of it, you at least have a good idea as to how many enemies are within that ultimate area. At the moment, the ultimate has 500 total health, which is huge, and this mostly means enemies cannot destroy the ultimate in one mag without a little help from other teammates. Enemies who either don't destroy the ultimate together or right away, or don't get out of the line of sight or range, are gonna get penalized severely. Since the ultimate has so much health at the moment, at least, I kind of expect this to be nerfed. I find that enemies are moving out of the range of the ultimate more so than just trying to destroy it. This could change with future nerfs, but for now, be mindful of where enemies are and where they're gonna try to move to when you do place the ult down. While the ultimate can be great to apply pressure when you are pushing enemy squads, I find that if you use the ultimate too early or if you are too far away from enemy teams, this gives them just too much time to react and get out of the range of the ultimate, and the ability mostly becomes a non-factor at this point. So take extreme care and try to use it when you're really ready to actually make an effective push. All that being said though, if you are crossing larger open areas, sometimes it is okay to use it from afar so you can get some extra time and relief to cross an open area. The opposite of this will be to use the ultimate when you are getting pressured though. Placing the ultimate down pretty much gives you like 10 or so seconds of relief from advancing enemies, or you do get a huge buff in damage output if they do push into something like your building. This also works well when you need to revive a knocked teammate if they do get knocked from afar and enemies are starting to move up. While the ultimate is good at both pressure and relief though, it also works well as a zoning tool. If you are in a sweaty endgame and you are in need of keeping teams from moving in one direction, maybe they're trying to rotate like left to you, a well-timed and properly placed ultimate can excel at doing this, and it could force two enemy teams to move together rather than pushing into your area. Back to legend upgrades though, Sparrow's second set of upgrades both revolve around the ultimate, and this does give the player a much more difficult choice than the first upgrades. One upgrade is going to give Sparrow health back when the ultimate ticks enemies. I fully expect this to get some sort of nerf or at least change at the moment. The health and shields regenerated from this upgrade is a 1-to-1 ratio. So if you tick a player for 20 damage, you're going to get 20 health back. If you tick 3 players 20 damage each, you're going to get 60 health back per tick. This upgrade is absolutely busted. If you're taking a 1-on-3, if you're getting pushed because 2 of your teammates are down and they are dancing in your ultimate, you're probably going to kill them and they are just not going to be able to kill you. At the moment, I think this is going to be the better upgrade, although the other one is not bad either. This second upgrade lets Sparrow get 3 ultimate charges that do pulse for less time and are in a smaller radius. Instead of it being 20 meters and 6 pulses, it now is a 10-meter radius and 3 pulses. Additionally, if you select this, the timer for each ultimate charge gets cut in half down to 90 seconds, which is probably the biggest factor here. This will let you have a little bit more flexibility in when and how you can use the ultimate. Theoretically, you could put 3 ultimates down back to back to back and do up to 180 total damage instead of just using 1, which is of course unlikely, but it does give you a little bit more flexibility to continually force movement on enemies. Of course, since the size of the area of effect is also cut in half, you have to be a little bit more accurate, but I also do find that the amount of times an enemy is truly just going to stand in the ultimate for all 6 pulses is pretty minimal, so sometimes just having the first 3 is going to be okay. I find this second upgrade is much better if you are just running and gunning in pubs, as you can use the ultimate a little bit more. Beyond just causing pure damage to enemies with the ultimate, it will also destroy a lot of items in Apex, such as electrified traps from a ramp or amped wall, or even the fake mirage clones. Also, if an enemy is behind a doorway, the ult is going to break that door and connect to the enemy, ratting on the other side of the door, which really can be awesome to breach into buildings. And right now, at least since Sparrow is kind of new, not a lot of players are expecting this. As for the ranking of Sparrow's ultimate, I actually don't think it's too overpowered, but what does make it much more OP is going to be if you take into account the health regen upgrade. I would say this ultimate is somewhere in the top 10, maybe top 12 type of ults in the game, and ultimately it is going to depend on the user and how you are playing. When it comes to legend pairings with Sparrow, I find that Sparrow mostly fills the squad role of either that recon or movement legend. This means taking a support legend or an assault legend, or at least an entry fragger with Sparrow is probably going to be best. You could also rock something like Sparrow, Lifeline, and a control legend if you are looking to play ranked. Weaponry, I find, doesn't really matter, but being able to take full effect of the close range ultimate placement is absolutely going to necessitate the use of something like an SMG or a shotgun or P2020 akimbos right now. Really, I would just look at what the meta is right now in the current season and use those as your close range weapons. Otherwise, your typical G7, 30-30, R301, Nemesis, Hemlock is going to work really nicely for you on Sparrow. When it comes to Sparrow's rank in Apex Legends meta, I would argue that he is one of the best in the game right now, but definitely not to the point where it was like Seer or Horizon upon their release. I put Sparrow somewhere around a top 6 legend for the overall game, as he does mix in movement, recon, and assault properties, which is pretty unique, but his kit is not going to necessarily directly support the team, which does knock him down just a little bit in my eyes. Check out this video if you want more on Apex. Drop a comment with what legend I should revisit next from my Master Guide series, and as always, happy gaming, Legends.